Winter, spring, summer, fall, seasons change, we still keep it together.
Hey Beverly Hills 90210 fans! Are you ready to dive deep, episode by episode, storyline by storyline, character by character, as we break down the making of your favorite zip code? With your hosts, Charles Rosen.
Did I say that?
Mary
This
Mullen.
heinous thing about the real person, and we're going, what? We're getting rid of this guy.
Pete Ferrero.
I'm feeling wonderful. Kathleen looks TV crush-worthy.
Like so many special guests. And all your questions. Live on the Beverly Hills 90210 show. Oh, yeah.
Everybody dance now.
Still my favorite intro. Hey, everybody. We're back here on the Beverly Hills 90210. Charles Rosen and Larry Mullen. Charles Rosen, how are you, man? How's everything going?
Very good, very good. Happy second day of Rosh Hashanah today. Haven't had a good one yesterday, and pretty good, nice day, nice morning. So happy to be here. You know, as always.
Yes. And Larry, how are things with you? Did you have a nice holiday yesterday?
I did a very nice family affair. I really keep with my sister who lives in San Pedro, and she came by for dinner, and there was cooking going on, and we had other things going on, and it was great. Yeah. I wanted to tell Chuck there are very big waves today, Chuck.
I saw.
Yeah. Of course, you know. Yeah. Yes, but things are good. Yeah. You know, life. I'm happy.
This is an episode that we're going to cover today. We're going to have a very special guest that's going to join us in a few, but we're talking about essentially the Alpha House, and we're talking about California University. And I want to start before we bring on our special guest, which is Brooke Theiss, who was Leslie Sumner. Yeah. And so she'll be on here in a few seconds to talk about coming on to 90210 and all that stuff. But at the top of this for you guys, as you approached CU, and we've talked a little bit about this before, creating the sorority, creating KEG. Tell me about creating these things in the world, Chuck.
Well, I felt that at the era that we were in the 90s, fraternities had been pretty dominant on their campuses, and that we needed to show it in a fair way. And it was one of the things that I certainly in doing our podcast here and looking back at some of the episodes we did in this period of time, you always had that the sorority was always like doing some fundraising event or some charitable action, and really was always to me one of the best things about the Greek system. And besides, we loaded up most of the shit on the cake house and on the guy side of the world, where frats, sororities don't seem to get kicked off of USC. It's the fraternities that get knocked out there. So it wasn't
That's
that
very
hard, but certainly when we wanted to put the Alpha House together, we were literally looking for a president who, just like so many viewers who look at our show and wanted to be friends with the cast, someone who would be welcoming, and you'd want to be in that sorority if you were part of the sorority system in a university. You would want the head of sorority, and we certainly, lucked out.
Yes, and we'll bring her on in a second. Larry, do you have a thought on Alpha House and where that name came?
I was going to say just the name itself. I think Chip wrote this episode, Chip Johansson, which Greek to me, which we introduced Leslie Sumner and the Alpha House, because I got the Keg House, which was in, I guess it was the episode before this. It was Little Fish. But yeah, and then so the whole idea of the Alpha House just has so much resonance to it because it's the alpha female, and that's we were looking for to run it, that kind of a perfect California girl. And so we were, as Chuck said,
and many sororities are alphas.
Yeah,
I mean
I'm not sure. Did we ever say what the second Greek letter was? Was it Alpha Beta?
Might be.
Oh no, it was Alpha Omega. I think it was Alpha Omega.
It was Alpha Omega. That's correct.
The first and the last. Because
right.
I know I came up with the Keg House, and that was always one of my proudest accomplishments.
We have to get some keg shirts here.
It got cleared too. That was just the greatest thing that the Kappa Epsilon Gamma no one had ever done.
Well, we're talking about Alpha House, so let's bring on the president of Alpha House.
All right.
Brooke Theiss.
Yes.
Hello. How are you? It's so good to see you.
I thought you'd be wearing CU colors.
for having me on. This is quite a treat for me.
Well, I'm a super fan of yours. We were talking before you came on here, and I grew up watching ABC television, and just the 10 of us. Larry, I think knew somebody there. So,
Yep.
I mean, you come from a really great show. You did that show. Tell me about just before we get into 90210. Tell me about doing just the 10 of us. My sister's going to be happy I asked you about this because we used to watch that show all the time.
Yeah, so just the 10 of us was really very near and dear to my heart. We were a family immediately. I know a lot of casts will say that, but I literally I organized the almost 35th year reunion this year. And so it was really, really special to see everybody. And I stay in contact with almost the entire cast. And Deborah Harmon is still like my mother. And all the girls I'm very close with. I did Nightmare on Elm Street with Heather Langenkamp, and Joanne Willette was in number 2 in the beginning as well. So I get to see them when I do the conventions and the horror cons and stuff like that. So still really I'm so nostalgic about that show. So it was a very important time in my life, and I was really grateful to have been on that show and to have some of the mentoring that I did by Deborah Harmon. So,
I was going to say there were only 3 television networks at that point, so a lot of people watched the show.
Okay, so that was a great start.
Yeah, we should probably do. I don't know. It's just too bad it was so crackly.
I know we were really getting into a good place. It's okay. We'll figure it out.
Just the 13 of us.
Right now, it's just the 3 of us.
No, it's just really, it's true. Like there were 3 television networks, and it's before Fox came in. She was 85.
You mean real television?
How many television stations do you think there are? I mean, with streamers, and listen, there are streamers that we aren't even aware of. With original content, you're talking about. Yes, there's something called Tubi. I didn't even know what that. I don't know what that is. You know what I mean? But that's a network. There is so many streamers, and there's streamers inside the streamers. Like Discovery Plus has 6 streaming platforms inside of itself. How many do you think there are now? I mean,
hundreds.
Yeah, 315.
That's a great. There you go. I mean, that's like the jelly beans. How many jelly beans?
Joe Adalian will know.
All right, so then you did Growing Pains, right?
So I started on Growing Pains. So I did a guest star on Growing Pains. And what happened was they did a pilot presentation to ABC, and they picked Jamie Luner and myself. We both had done guest stars. And they said these were the ideal daughters for Coach. So that's how we were first kind of presented. And then they did this huge search for twins. And they actually had the triplets. And I'm forgetting their name. There was a triplet. You guys might know who.
I sort of remember them. Yeah.
Yeah. There was.
Pete, they were on our show.
Oh my God, you're right. You're right, because they did 90210. Monica Lacey. I forget the other Creole, Monica Creole, the Leanna Creole, the Creole sisters.
Yeah, beautiful.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah, love them.
That was impressive.
Yeah, well, that was like phone a friend. Lifeline. Okay, so how did you get into the audition? Was it through Diane Young that you got in through the audition for 90210?
Yes, exactly. For 90210. Exactly. Yes. So that's how I got, I'm sure my agent just submitted me, and then being, long time, friend, at least of Diane Young's, she called me in.
So walk me through that. Going to audition for Beverly Hills 90210 in season 4. I mean, the show was huge at that point, so you had to know that it was a really big deal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, all auditions are terrifying, at least still for me. So yeah, you just kind of cross your fingers and you hope at least you get to the executive producers and you get a chance to, for them to see your face and for you get to stand in front of them. So yeah, when I booked it, it was amazing and great. I'm very excited.
And you knew at the time that the character would be coming back from many things.
Yeah, so they said she was recurring. So, you just hope that you get, a couple of shows out of even a recurring. But my funny story about So I did season 4, and then I didn't do season 5, and then I came back for season 6 for the whole Rose Bowl.
That's right.
Presenting the whole the Rose Bowl and all of that. So my agent calls me, and she says, "Okay, Brooke, they want to bring you back." I'm like, "Yes." So I was very, very pregnant at the time. She's like, "Yeah, they want to like start shooting on your due date." I said, "Tell them I'm available."
Show people I know people I know.
Exactly.
She's like, "But
God
what?" I
bless.
said, "This baby's coming early."
Yeah.
So I was like, I manifested my baby coming 2 weeks early. First child came early. And I remember going to the wardrobe fitting with a 2-week-old baby. Yeah. And
That's
I was
amazing.
on the treadmill, and this is like way before we all had like gadgets. So I'm like trying to lose my baby weight. And I'm on the treadmill, and I got a string on this little like bouncy seat, and I'm pulling the string, and I'm running on the treadmill, and I'm so I can bounce my back. Like, I gotta get 20 minutes on the treadmill, so I gotta lose this baby weight.
Oh, that's great.
Chuck, Larry, do you remember Brooke coming in at all? Do you have any memory?
Well, I knew Brooks, but because like I said, I knew Bill, and I'm not quite sure how. I was doing the New Gidget at that time in the mid '80s, which is the syndicated show, we just knew her. So I heard that she was going to happen. Yes, absolutely. I wasn't at that casting session. I would have been Chip there, but I certainly was going, yeah, because as I said before, and not to mean to flatter you, but you were beautiful, and you're still beautiful. But then you kind of represented the perfect sorority girl, the alpha girl, and you were kind and I knew you had that kind of a softer quality to you, that you weren't going to be abrasive or unlikable, and you'd be the welcoming figure there in the face of the
Right,
the high bar for the sorority.
Right.
Exactly, and Diane Young, we're going to be talking to her.
Can't wait.
A few of the different ones. We're really excited about that. But Diane would come in, and she'd have this glint in her eye, because she didn't want to be unfair to say, "This is the one I want." Because my friends know, and the people who are super fans and watch this know, I just didn't have that much time for casting. I told Diane the day she started, just bring me 3 or 4 choices, and you pre-read 100 people. I'm not going to do it. And so, but she had that glint, and so she didn't want to say, "This is the one I want." All she had to do was tell me, "This is the one I want," and that's would have been it. But we were professional, so she, but there was that glint, and that's what I remember. She always had a smile and a glint when she would mention your name. So that was my tip, and like Larry says, it was a really difficult thing. I was not in the Greek system. In fact, I was in the anti-Greek system. My years at University of California, Berkeley, when we thought that the frat system was going out of business, and so to have it be resurged was just not part of my life. But my nephews were very active in their fraternities at their various schools, one at UCLA and one at down at Irvine. So I didn't have negativity towards the Greek system, and I didn't want to play it as a negative part. As I said, when we were starting, it was, or before, the charitable work of the sorority was what I wanted to emphasize. And we used most of the crappy stuff. As I said, no sorority got ever kicked out of SC. Only the fraternities have to go away. So there was a slight big difference between the two. And I just thought, knowing that our first, the 2 episodes that you were in that stand out for me are really 2 of the bookend ones. One of which is this first one, Greek to me, with is Andrea Zuckerman going to join a
right
sorority, and then later, and we just did kind of a revisit of this one particular episode that we did that you were in, which was Take Back the Night. Okay. Which was probably our first real political episode that we did in season 4, because we did much less in season 4 than we did in our high school years.
Right. Yeah.
I'm going to show a clip just of you walking into the universe, and maybe you can talk about coming to set and what that experience was like for you. This is just kind of the first time we see you.
Who we are, so we tell them. We are the Gammas, mighty, mighty Gammas. Everywhere we go, people want to know who So we tell them we are the Gammas, mighty, mighty Gammas, everywhere.
That is not the first time we see you. This is the
Well, with 30 seconds left to go, I finally meet the Fab Four from West Beverly.
Someone's been talking about us?
Let's see, summer camp counselors, elementary school charities, a spring queen, valedictorian. You guys could start your own sorority. Oh, no. Well, this is why they call it Rush. Excuse me.
All right, so you're in the universe. What is it like? Go ahead, Chuck. Yep.
I think we got to look that over again.
There is a scene before this. There is another scene that she's in, but
because nonverbal communication is a thing.
Yes.
And Brenda is sitting there with her arms folded, like,
Not into it.
why did you wait to the end? I don't know what you were saying by that,
Right.
but the body language was really evident that she didn't really want to be in the rush.
Definitely not. I didn't get the sense that Brenda wanted to be there at all.
No, well, that was
That's
how we did it.
well, okay, that's another conversation. But
I'm just kidding.
That was really specific because I was looking at how's Andrea, how's Gabrielle looking at all
Sure.
of this, knowing that it's going to be where the story goes, and yet I caught. Brenda's now in truth, she had just got back from
College.
Minnesota University or University of Minnesota. And by coming back that way, maybe she was like, "Oh, what are they going to be doing with me in this sorority? Am I now a sorority chick?"
Right.
I don't know what was going on in the mind, but I could see it there, and I had to call it out. I'm
Sure.
sorry to interrupt you, people.
No, you're good. But Brooke, what about for you coming in? I mean, you're. It's not like you have a scene with Shannon. You got a scene with Shannon, Jenny, Tori, and Gabrielle. Like you're thrown right into the fire. So what?
Right into the fire, right? First of all, I want to say that both my parents went to UCLA. My mother was Alpha Chi Omega. I think my father was Alpha Chi, I think it was called. He's passed away, but I have to say, when he passed away, all his fraternity brothers came. So I had an incredible sense of what it meant to be in a fraternity and a sorority. My mother and father were both dear friends with all of their brothers and sisters. And so I had that kind of knowledge coming in that it was a real family and that you stood up for each other. And so that was kind of my take on it, coming from a family of very big on fraternities and sororities. And then it's so funny because you said you went to Berkeley. My future daughter-in-law just graduated from Berkeley, and my son went to UC Santa Cruz, which are like so not like fraternity, campuses. They don't have that whole Greek life. So it was interesting to see the dynamics of knowing where my parents came from, and then
Sure.
seeing where both of my, my child and future daughter-in-law came from. So that was very interesting. But yes, being thrown into the fire big time. So I literally remember I was in the makeup trailer and nervous and knowing it, it's hard to be a guest star. I really learned how to be a guest star from Deborah Harmon on Just the 10 of Us. And she said, we treat our guest stars like their family. You make them feel included and loved and welcome, because when they feel comfortable, it only makes us look better and our show better. So, but I was still nervous because you walk into a clique and girls are cliquey, but boys aren't. So Luke Perry came right up to me. He's like, "Brooke, do you remember we read for that soap together, and I was the reader, and I had testing for some soap, and I totally remembered. I hadn't remembered it was him, and so I felt so welcomed by the guys. Girls, not so much. So yeah, it was a little hairy. I rather worked the whole time with the boys, but in the
And
end,
oddly,
girls
you're working.
walked up to me.
You're just working with the girls, so that's not going to be your trajectory.
I know, right? I was like, I know we had the party, and I was like, oh man, anytime to interact with the boys, I'm down.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, and I know you might want to not go answer this, but look, Shannon's going to leave the season, right? There's a lot of hoopla. She's someone that's in the press. They're all in the press. There's a block dedicated to them on A Current Affair. Are you aware of any of this stuff that's happening? Can you get a sense? You were there for 9 episodes. You're there through some of the critical parts where some of this might be going down.
So, I know as an actor, I think they were very guarded. And I think that's probably one of the other reasons why when you come in as a guest star, you have to walk a fine line and understand, especially they were such big stars. So knowing that and just trying to fit in and let them understand that I'm a fellow actor and that, gossip and all of that stuff was not my thing. But yeah, I could definitely feel a sense of, turmoil, I think, if that's underlying. There was definitely a tone underlying of turmoil and not so much chaos, but stress and trying to understand where they were kind of going and where they kind of fit in at the moment.
I can't imagine being a guest star because it's like it's almost like going to a new school,
100%.
right?
100%. Yeah.
And you come to visit the school and there's drama, right? She's not talking to her. And it's like, I don't understand why. I just want to get past my algebra class. Yeah. Go ahead, Chuck.
Well, you ought to remember something too. This was episode for college.
Episode 4.
Yeah, but episode 2 for college.
Sure.
So they're going to a new school.
Sure.
They don't know. This is so, what are we doing in Eagle Rock? This is not, where's Torrance High? Wait, whatever security blankets were there. I mean, yes, we still have the stage. There still was the Peach Pit. I know
what you're saying though. Yeah.
But this was a major artery, and knowing that especially Brenda had just come back from Minnesota, not that clear that was going to be happening. I think there was a little bit of and a sorority. The notion of a sorority episode, was this going to be, how big was the Greek system going to be in our college experience? It was certainly a part of it, but it never was the dominant part. But I do want to just say one thing. One of the reasons that there was a jump from 4 to 6 is because we focused our college world in season 5 in the political suite with President, Brandon Walsh,
sure,
and not the Greek system. Greek system was not specific to any of the college actions we were looking at.
They're explaining why you weren't in season 5.
It's not you, but all there was no alpha. There was no keg.
I'm sure there was keg.
Keg was over. I think keg was always keg was there.
Yeah,
there was all the way.
I have to look at it, but I'm sure there was keg.
Well, we had the guy, the rich Donna's rich boyfriend. He was a keg man.
In the mix of all this, Chuck, and we've talked about this once before, a very long time ago on this podcast. But in the midst of all of the episodes I watched with Brooke, we changed presidents of the keg. This is like about face on the president, and we even acknowledge it. Oh, it's so good. Brooke says to the actor, "You're so good that you're now the president." But there was drama with the president, the previous president, right? Chuck?
To an extent, yeah. Yes, there was.
Yeah. I mean, well, just for the time, it was an issue at the time. Diane, when we talk to Diane,
sure,
we can talk about that.
Were you aware of that there was a switch with the president, Brooke?
Well, I remember that scene, but I didn't. No, not totally.
Okay, you're not hip to.
Yeah, because Patrick Fabian, the guy from Better Call Saul, was the first president. I remember that.
That's the one that stopped being president, right?
No, but then there was somebody else, and then somebody else.
The second president.
I can't remember. The second president didn't want to do the part, which was basically to portray him as a gay man.
And that.
Oh, gotcha. Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy though? Yeah.
As I remember, right, Chuck? Stephen and Brandon end up in some place in Las Vegas.
One of my favorite episodes.
In a gay bar.
One of my favorite episodes.
They see Steve's president. Yeah.
On the way to Dodger Stadium, the card breaks down.
Yeah.
That's right. It's such a great episode.
I think it's Blind Eye. The one about Blind Spot, maybe.
Yes. That was it. Good memory, Lair.
That's a great episode.
Michael Lang. Yeah, it was a good one.
All right, let me show you, Brooke, where you come into the world. I'm going to show you a couple of scenes here, and you can talk about doing some of this.
Tomorrow, when you open your envelope, whether your bid says Alpha House or someplace else, know that each and every one of you has what it takes to be whatever you want. Alpha Omega means the beginning and the end. This marks the end of our courtship, and for some of us, the beginning.
Whither thou goest, I will go. Whither thou goest, I will go.
Leslie's not happy with the star. Leslie's not happy. Okay, let's see where this goes.
Hi, Andrea.
What are you doing here?
Can I come in?
Sure. The candlelight ceremony was really moving. I loved it.
What got into you, huh? What'd you have to wear the star for? I pulled for you all week long. The girls were all ready to accept you.
But not if I'm Jewish.
Are you crazy? I'm Jewish.
I had no idea.
Yeah, well, everybody in the sorority knows, and everybody is fine with it.
They are?
Of course. Because I don't flaunt it, that's the trick.
So, there's a trick.
You got a real problem, you know that?
I have a problem. When you go to synagogue on the high holy days, what do you tell your sorority sisters? That you're off to the mall?
If you want to join a temple, join one. But Alpha O is a sorority.
You're right, it is. And I would like you to withdraw my name because I don't want to be a part of it.
This is really, really great stuff.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in a while. I really enjoyed that.
That's Chip.
It's very apropos that it's Rosh Hashanah, right?
I mean, it did kind of work out this way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but as Chuck said earlier, we think you might have been adopted. That's the only thing. As a Jewish child.
Can
Buddy, you don't look.
As Landsman, you're not Ashkenazi. That much we know. So I guess it would be like coming from the Italy. Or,
Oh no,
or
much bigger
Argentine.
price to be Ashkenazi. She's not Sephardic.
Not Sephardic.
Not coming
yeah,
from
no.
Spain, from southern Italy, or that.
Brooke, what do you remember about shooting this with Gabrielle?
Well, it's fascinating to watch it back now when we're talking about, the actor who didn't want to be portrayed as gay. Where we are today, where, we're just so much more inclusive, which is so lovely to see. But yeah, I remember that my story is this. So in 2020, I did my DNA and I found out I was freaking Jewish.
Amazing. That's great.
Now, not a lot, but I'm not kidding. So I'm mostly German. So I'm a German Jew,
Oh,
so,
well, sure. Okay.
I'm a
Welcome
small
to the family.
percentage.
Welcome to
Yeah,
the family.
given what's been on in Germany, I'd have kept that hidden too.
Well,
Or somebody in your ancestors, God bless them,
Right,
Yes.
right. My great grandfather came over in the 1920s. I think my father did our lineage, but obviously somewhere in there. So most of my friends were Jewish. So it was interesting doing this scene and dealing with this topic and trying to hide yourself and trying to be accepted, and especially because I look like the all-American girl. I was the all-American girl next door with the secret, right?
Mhm.
Because there was a time, and there's still is a lot of discrimination against Jewish people, and
Yes.
so it was like it's like just trying to fit in and trying to be accepted, and let's just kind of keep that on the DL. And it's just an interesting episode. And then with my background of all my friends were Jewish, and my future daughter-in-law is Jewish, and then I find out I'm Jewish, and I think about this scene a lot because I was like, I was Jewish.
You had every right to be in that scene.
Well, the one thing I think that's really interesting, and I think it's a testament to what you brought to the character, is that despite this scene, which is, which again shows the power of less language, that by the looks, even in the look when you're looking and you notice it the first time and you blow out and it comes, the almost that the less is more, philosophy. But and I think Larry would agree with me on this. I never held that whenever I would see your character in any other episode, I would never think of this scene. This scene did not stick with me because you were a vivacious, warm, inclusive. I'm the president with a big smile. It was what you brought to the character in the sorority house. So it wasn't like, oh yeah, but you remember she did this too,
right?
That wasn't, that didn't stick with me.
I agree.
No, she became, the sorority cheerleader, so to speak.
Sure.
But it gave a good insight to the character, and it was honest. It rang true.
Go ahead, Brooke.
And it gave Gabrielle a good scene, which we always were looking for. Again, I say this a lot, but sometimes when you're a guest star and you have to serve the show. Sometimes you're playing something that doesn't put you in the best light.
Yeah.
Right, you have to play the story.
And I think that
was.
Go ahead, Brooke.
I was just going to say, I think that's the dichotomy of the character of coming from a sorority, where you're inclusive, where you're family, and you've got your fellow sisters back, and then, but we're Jewish, and so let's kind of hide that, and so it was a real kind of dichotomy to play, one side to the other side, and trying to find your way through that.
Go ahead.
And I think I can safely say that Gabrielle's least favorite moment in her 5 seasons of doing 90210 happened off screen when the network asked us to ask her not to ever wear it again, because she had worn it in high school at a different thing, and someone asked that let's not do that. And that really, really offended her. So
I remember her talking about that with us.
That extra level of emotion of, yes, I am proudly wearing this now. It wasn't just directed to you in the Alpha House. Believe me, it was directed to the network and by guilt by association, the producers who went along with the network on that.
And
it's interesting.
And all the way up to Mr. Spelling, I would think.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a very interesting story, Chuck. But when now does the network? How does the network handle this now? Because now we're showing it, and now we're making it a part of the story.
Oh, I know what they were thinking.
What's that?
Yeah, foxed us again.
No, put it in the
Damn
context.
Rusin. I'm so sick of him. I don't know what they were thinking, but we did. I mean,
Put it in the context.
It was you could not. It was integral to the moment. It was nothing.
It's literally taken out from what happened to Gabrielle a couple of seasons ago. You took it and used it against them. It's brilliant. All right, but she does get that.
When she came to me to tell me the story, I went, yeah, I can use that. We
Great
ended up
idea.
finding a way to do it.
We're gonna write that in.
She does. Leslie does kind of rectify some of this. Let's watch that.
Andrea. Look, I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, but I need to speak to you in private.
Look, anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of my friend Brandon.
Well, when I told the girls that you withdrew your name, they were really upset. They didn't care about your Star of David or your religion or anything but you.
That's what they say, but they obviously don't make you feel that way.
It's not the Alpha House. It's me. Yeah, what do you expect from a girl whose family changed her last name from Schulman to Sumner?
Listen, you two obviously have a lot to talk about. I'm going to excuse myself.
How rude of me. Brandon Walsh, this is Leslie Sumner, Schulman.
Hi.
Nice.
Lovely.
And we wrapped it up. That was really nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Because that was a 90210 thing, right? I wanted it always to be the best selves that people could be would come out.
Yes.
We've talked about that. Whenever I was asked during the high school shows, Brooke, how would you like a teenage escort? I said, no, it's a different series. Not going to do it.
Right.
Finally, in the 5th season, we got Tiffany, but we finally broke down. Finally realized it was the soap. Yeah.
The Schulman was the last name of my high school girlfriend. I just
Oh, nice, Larry.
stuck
Thank
out
you.
to me. Chip must have asked me a Jewish name in the writers' room. And I told him Schulman.
The next episode we see you in Brooke, and there's no clip necessary for this, but you are in the mix of Ian Ziering's character Steve, and you're wrestling with him in the pool, and it causes a fight between him and Celeste, the girlfriend. Do you remember playing with Steve and doing some of the work with Steve or Ian? Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Ian was great. You know, he really was very. Again, like all the guys were really awesome. Yeah. No, it was just fun. We just had fun, and again, he was very welcoming, and so I felt very comfortable, and so it was just we just played off each other and had a good time.
Were you married then?
I was engaged. I was 23. Yeah. So season 4, I was engaged.
Right.
Yes.
Just curious.
I had my baby quick.
And Paul Johansson is somebody who's a big part of all this. Yeah. Do you guys sort of have a camaraderie being on the set together, that you're both in this world as guest stars in similar, he's a little bit more of a bad guy, but similar,
Yeah. Totally. Again, when you're a guest star on this kind of show, on this kind of caliber show, with these kind of actors that have that kind of fame circling around them, you kind of gravitate towards each other because you feel like there's safety in numbers, right?
Yeah.
When you come on the set, you're like, okay. So PJ and I got along so well, and we had so much fun. My funny story about PJ is I lived in Burbank, and I would always see PJ. He had this huge Dalmatian. No, was that Dalmatian? Was that a Great Dane? Excuse me,
Okay.
Great Dane. Mm-hmm. And he had a convertible, and the Great Dane would sit in the back, and he would drive all around Burbank, and you'd see him driving around with this Great Dane in his car, and I would see him at Bob's Big Boy and see him all around. So we had a nice camaraderie, PJ and I think I remained friends with him for a number of years after.
Well, that's really great.
Yeah.
Chuck, let's talk about Take Back the Night. We just covered it and did a deep dive on that episode, but I want to give you
What about that clip from the pool?
No, we don't have the pool. I mean, it was just them playing volleyball and shit. It was really, it's like a 10-second clip.
The dance, it was that.
Oh, it's so cool. Yeah, there's a dance, and Brandon or David and Brenda dance together.
It's the 70s, right? We had a 70s.
Oh, there's that. Yep, there's some of that. Yeah.
Whenever I hear those songs, I literally think of shooting that whole big sequence dance party.
Yes. But
she would bring up the music.
Niagara Falls.
They changed our music. They've stripped out all our music, so it's not the original music. It's not the show I made.
I guess it has to happen so you can at least be on the air, right? Because just the 10 of us is having the same issues. We can't get on the air. The rights to the music is just crazy. I was listening to some of them, like, oh, that Beatles song. I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be so much money.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
Yeah. Our music.
Here's a scene. This is the Thanksgiving, Chuck, where John Sears is going to be weird.
I know we've all worked hard at making this annual Thanksgiving visit to the Downey house better than ever. And as for me, it's the one keg Alpha tradition that I'm most proud of.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome, Leslie.
And on behalf of Alpha House, we would like to say congratulations on becoming the new Keg House president.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. I spoke to Cecilia today at Downey House, and she told me that the girls are so excited about us coming, and she wants us all to know how much this party really means to them.
Hey, Leslie, any cute ones this year? Keith hasn't had a date since Halloween.
It's because he has breath like a yak.
Come on, guys. Look, I know it's really easy to forget that these girls are depending on us. Most of them are runaways, some of them are pregnant, and none of them have anyone else to turn to, except for the counselors at the Downey house and us.
All right. Any other committee reports?
Yeah, the decorations committee should meet back here by 5 so that we have time to go over there and set up. And the turkeys will be ready to be picked up tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. at the University Food Services.
Great. Everybody know what we're supposed to do? Yep. Okay, we're out of here.
Thanks again.
So there you go.
I love the hair.
I love the hair. There's a whole bunch of things here to cover. There's the hair. John Sears is about to be really weird with a girl that's a runaway, right? Yeah. And then, of course, he acknowledged that the president had changed, Chuck.
Well, yeah, because Patrick Fabian, we didn't have a hold on him. He was only appeared in the first episode. Is this the second? This is the second president or the third president?
This is the third. This is the third. This is the second. Oh, this is the president.
Yeah,
That's the guy who wouldn't play the part.
That has the conflict.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's the second president.
Wow.
I worked with Brandon on Just the 10 of Us, so we had a little camaraderie already as well. So.
Oh, nice.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. AJ Langer. That was the girl I was thinking of. That's the girl at the Downey house.
Right. Who was that? And that's the great story. She was available to us because when they did when she was under contract, she was the other girl with in the Zwick Herskowitz show, My So-Called Life.
My So-Called Life.
Yeah. And because they were having issues of authority, she was available to come on our show, and it gave me great pleasure to snatch her and
absolutely
put her on the play, knowing that they described their show as the non 90210 or something, and then
we're not 90210.
We're not.
That's what they were quoted saying.
He
was a neighbor. I always hated him for that.
Yeah, they used all our stories anyway. So what's
his little league. Hey, did you know AJ Langer?
I did, yes. I knew AJ Langer very, very well. Super
I think she's
talented.
like married.
She's a countess, right?
I was gonna say she married royalty. I think, because we tried to get her for the podcast. I went, oh, she's royalty now.
She's not coming on the podcast. I wish.
You think she was at the wedding? I mean, excuse me, the funeral?
Right.
I would hope so.
Right. Who knows?
And the wedding, I guess, before that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would love to see. Yeah, we saw each other all the time on auditions, and then got to work together, even if it was indirectly. But yeah, loved AJ Langer. Such a talent.
Yeah, nice person.
She was electric. Yeah.
Brooke, did you get recognized a bunch from? I mean, I know people probably recognized you from Just the 10 of Us and Growing Pains and some of the other stuff that you've done. But do you get super fans, 90210 fans, that talk to you about what you did here on this?
Yeah. The funny thing is the when I do a lot of the horror conventions, which is really what I do the bulk of my conventions. If I do a convention, it's a horror convention. But
are you a scream queen? Are you a scream queen?
Yeah, it's a Nightmare 4. Yeah, so it's like
nice.
I turned into a cockroach. If you see it, you'll know. The funny thing is I don't get recognized a lot because I kind of, my whole thing was I really like to be a chameleon. I like to look different. I wore a wig in Nightmare and in 90210. I had my hair a little more straight. I did have it a little 80s. But yes, I get a lot of fans from 90210. So my whole point was that when I go to do the conventions, I promote Nightmare, Just the 10 of Us, and 90210. That's what's on my poster. So that's really what I'm known from. So.
Are you doing any conventions where people can come meet you and say hi? Anything coming up?
Yeah, so I actually have a convention in October. I'm going to Lewiston, Kentucky. So I will be in Kentucky. I just came from Chicago in August. So I try to do like 2 a year.
That's great.
Yeah, it's Fright Fest, I think, is the convention.
Yes, it must be this time of year, right?
Yeah,
October.
But October is a really fun time to do the conventions because people's cosplays are crazy and fabulous, and it's a really fun.
Do you guys know what that is? Do you guys know that people go and dress up as these characters to the convention? Yeah, it's a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
It's really, I know, it's crazy.
Chuck, let's talk about Take Back the Night, and Brooke is kind of, and I don't have the scene because she's really not in the episode all that much. You know what I mean? She introduces the woman that's going to be speaking that we spoke to and whatnot, but I don't know if you remember the episode at all, Brooke, but it's a pretty heavy episode. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What are you giving me some of your thoughts on that episode and shooting some of the whole date rape thing? Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, again, it's interesting because 90210 was such a light show, but it really had such an undertone of heavy topics, such as Take Back the Night, such as dealing with hiding who you are, and obviously you wanted to explore, a character being gay. So you had a lot of, you guys were kind of ahead of your time. So it was nice to be a part of a show that dealt with topics that were very relevant and were happening, and now we're in such a woke society, and we really weren't then. So it was kind of the pendulum was starting to swing to try to be aware of these things and bring them out into the open and to be able to talk about them. So it was kind of fun as an actor to be part of that. So, but heavy topics, and how do you play this? How do you play this, and still stay true to the show? You know.
Sure. You did a wonderful job, by the way, doing that. You know,
well, I had fun.
That was James Whitmore, right? I was wondering about all the different directors you've worked under for the show. Like that was a James Whitmore episode. Is that what you said?
That directed Take Back the Night.
Remember James?
I do. I was thinking of Jamie Widows, but that was just the 10 of us. So yes, I do remember.
Who else? Who was your favorite director? Do you remember on the show? Like, who do you remember?
I don't. I'm sorry.
Well, you know who I think. You know who I know remembered you, because we're quick to say, oh, what have you done? What have you done since? You know, etc. And I noticed that that you were in the pilot of American Dreams.
Yes.
Which was directed by our associate producer and major director as well, Dave Semmel. Mm-hmm. And so he met you here. Whether he made an impression on you, you made an impression on him. And I don't even know what the role was, but still, I saw that you were in that pilot, and I knew that he directed it. So
that's so funny, yeah, because I got that. I moved to Canada, and for a while, my husband's Canadian, and so I had booked that project up there, and I do remember him, and I thought probably, hopefully that's maybe, hope for these connections that you go, oh, I'm connected to you, I know you, and then you're graced with a part. So I do remember that. Yeah, I was in the pilot. I just was in a book club scene for Virginia Madsen, who I think got fired from the show because I ran into her and I was like, oh, I worked with you on American Dreams, and she's like, yeah, I got fired from that show. I was like, oh, okay. Never mind.
Awkward. I have to tell you, bro, you don't want to hear this, but that's kind of what network television was all about, including our experience in 90210. These people go there and here's the pilot, and like all pilots, very few pilots are stellar.
Yeah.
Very few. Most of them there's a problem here, there's a problem here, where are you going with it? Unanswered questions. And so the easiest thing to do for an executive to swoop down, know that they may be putting on a show that isn't going to fire and gonna change the universe. So to protect themselves from making that choice, they say, well, I'll go forward with this, but we've got to change this part. Okay.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying, Larry?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just you've got to have friendly fire wherever you go.
CYA.
I was going to say one thing. I remember we're saying that. I just remember I had a friend who was an actor, and it was right down to the end for a pilot. It was him and somebody else, and it was, remember Joel Thurm? You probably remember Joel. He was the casting guy at NBC, and my friend did his thing. I thought he was pretty good, and he finally leaves the room, and Joel Thurm goes, "No, he's yesterday's wardrobe." And that was it. And my friend said, "What did he say afterwards?" And I never, to this day, have ever told him that. He's probably not listening to this because it was so cruel. He would have been devastated.
Oh my God! Yeah,
we brought Joel through. You remember? I did a low budget, really one of the first low budget pilots for Fox with my base, and we had 6 actors in it, and they all were young, and it was 1999, 2000, so the business was flush. People were making a lot of money, and we had a top of the line at $10,000 to do our pilot. Joel Thurm is the one.
Wow.
Joel Thurm negotiated the contract. Very much.
It's crazy. Yeah, my husband always goes, you call you, so well, they gave it to the other guy. And he goes, you know how many times I've looked at the sign-in sheet? I've never seen his name on there. I've never seen the other guy. I want to know who the other guy is.
Is your husband an industry person?
He was for a long time. His name is Brian Genesee. So he was on a soap called Bold and Beautiful, and then he did a series with Carl Weathers called Street Justice. And cool. And then he did a lot of independent films, mostly all for New Image, who is Millennium.
Well, I know if he was on Bold and Beautiful, he's very handsome.
Yeah.
Very
That was
handsome. Yeah.
Where in Canada did you live?
He was the bold or beautiful. I was like, oh, he was both.
Which one was it? Oh, both. Where in Canada? Where in Canada did you live?
So I was we first Vancouver and then we moved to Toronto, but I did book American Dreams in Vancouver. So
Right.
it was living. I grew up in Palos Verdes, so living in California my whole life, it was really it was fun to say I've lived someplace else. Although I always find my
So did you go to Palos Verdes or Rolling Hills?
PV High.
Oh, right.
Okay.
Real
Well,
Palos.
she could have gone to Mara. She could have gone to Marilista too.
All right, I want to show one more clip. This is because I'm a Kelly and Dylan fan, and I know people will love this.
We'll just pray that we don't see anyone we know. I think it's a little too late for that.
Oh, Kelly, isn't that your boyfriend? Why don't you go over there and kiss him hello?
No, Leslie, I don't think that's a very good idea, see, because we're not getting along.
Oh, come on, Kelly. It's just a little kiss. Just an alpha kiss, huh?
Come on, Cal, go over and get it over with. Donna, he is the last person I want to kiss right now. Well, look at the bright side. Could be John Sears she asked you to kiss. Fine.
Looking real good, Cal.
Look, I know that you are probably still mad at me, and I am definitely still mad at you. But I have to kiss you right now in front of all of these people. And I would really appreciate it if you would please just go along with it.
Did you say please?
Yes, I said please.
Well, in that case, I never could resist a sorority girl in a shower cap.
What was that for?
Cold cream turns me on.
There you go. Do you remember doing some of this stuff and some of is it hazing? Is that the right word? Is that the right?
That was it.
Yeah.
It was our 50s interpretation of the 90s. Because, I have no, again, like Chuck said, we both grew up in a time when fraternities were you were against fraternities. First of all, you couldn't meet the right girls if you were in fraternity. You were not going to meet any girls, frankly. It was pretty simple. But, we had this image of fraternities. So it was fun. We could have some fun with that. And that's a great kiss. I had forgotten that one.
Yeah,
oh, absolutely. Cold cream turns me on. Did you write that, Larry?
I don't remember, but I'd like to think I did. But
well, Brooke, what about you? Brooke, do you remember doing some of the hazing stuff and some of that fun? Yeah.
I do. I mean, being in the sorority, it is true. It's like, I think that's probably what sororities still do. That's about probably it. I don't think sororities really do a lot of the hazing.
Oh, that's one thing I wanted to say about it. That kind of surprised me when all three of my children went Greek when they got to college. The middle one changed colleges, so when she went to Pitzer out in the 5Cs, she was no longer in a sorority, but she was for a freshman in Wisconsin, and both my other kids at Penn. And what they do now, even at Wisconsin, is you do not rush in your first semester. It's only the second semester, so they let you get used to being in school.
Got it.
And then do it. It's no longer the first thing done.
Yeah, that seems like a lot.
Yeah, at least at University of Pennsylvania, which is it is known as the it is the only Ivy League school that's open to the Greek system. And I remember talking to the president of the university for that 10 seconds that in a greeting thing. And I asked her about it, and she said, "The bane of my existence."
Well, the other thing in that scene too, Brooke, is we see Luke Perry there, and you said that he came up to you when you first got there and all that stuff. And I'm curious, did you stay friendly with him, and how did you feel about when you heard that he passed and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so again, Luke was probably my favorite actor on the set. He was just, again, he was how I learned to treat your guest stars with kindness and compassion and inclusivity. And that's what he did when he first came right up to me, and he made me feel extremely welcomed, which makes you feel very comfortable to do your job. So yeah, Luke was my absolute favorite, and I did keep in contact with him for a little bit, and then we kind of lost contact. It's easier to keep in contact these days with social media, but
Sure.
yeah, when I heard he passed, it was just devastating. And at first you're like, oh my gosh, he's just so young and so much life to live, and his children, and that's just really very heartbreaking. And it's like it's the good die young. I swear to God, it's true. You know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you know, we've had
one.
this story from guest stars that same thing. Luke always welcomed them, especially, you know, and it just made them there. So he would say, "Forget the bitches, I'm here."
He did say that. He did.
Or how are the bitches treating you?
Yes, right.
Like that. Yeah, exactly.
And yet he had such a warm, loving relationship with them. So he was really able to like
yes,
you know, embrace the guest stars and embrace all of those people, but still not ostracize himself from the cast. So I mean, from the girls. So he had like I said, he was a good one, and he walked that line so well. But it was just who he was. He was just a warm guy. So you just couldn't not like him. Not like him.
Yeah. Real quick too, before we wrap up here, you did come back in season 6 and you did all this stuff in Pasadena. Larry, do you want to talk about that? You know, bringing Brooke back, and then I want to get Brooke's thoughts on coming back and shooting in Pasadena and doing all that Rose Princess stuff.
Well, I mean, look, we were going to do, we committed to doing that storyline. You know, we had arranged it and everything. So we needed somebody to, you know, for Donna to have scenes with. And it just seemed like a natural way to, because also we had to lure Donna to want to do this also, you know, to put herself out there to kind of compete for the Rose Court. And so, you know, having Leslie there, someone she knew, you know, just made it that much easier, and it made total sense that she would do something like that. You know, go from Alpha, now she's a local girl, she's working in Pasadena, and you know, it was perfect in that way. So we were very lucky to have that familiarity, you know, in having Leslie Sumner there, and also just the authenticity of who she was and how she played things. That we knew that Donna could trust her in a certain way, and you know, and again, serving the story, you know, she could also bring in the information we needed.
For you, Brooke, what about coming back? And you talked a little bit about being pregnant and all that stuff, but what was it like to get back and on set and be with everybody again?
That was an easier season to come into, because again, now you're a little bit part of the, you know, the extended family, and so you have a little more welcome arms. I remember the one comment all the girls said is, "We're so sorry. Why are they dressing you like you're a 40-year-old woman?" I just remember that. I was like, I would love to look like a 40-year-old woman now. I totally remember that comment. They all like collectively said that to me. They were like, "We're so sorry." I was like, "It's totally fine."
Yeah.
I love it.
Why'd you do that, Larry? I'm
going to blame Jessica, because she was Molly.
Or Molly Campbell.
Jessica.
Molly
Campbell would know, but I certainly didn't pick out any wardrobe. I would just go, yeah, well, you know, I mean,
Molly would not tolerate this comment.
Yeah, I you know, Jessica was really involved, you know, in a lot.
Well, Jessica set this whole thing up, right? With the
once we had the idea, she was, you know, she would go out to Pasadena and meet the people and stuff. Which was
I love that story. That's on our archives. If you're listening to the archives, we did cover that whole saga with Jessica Klein, who's no longer with us, passed away.
And also with Kathleen Cannon.
That's right, Catherine Cannon. Well, Brooke, this has been really great having you here.
I have to say one thing I regret. We never gave you a romantic storyline. You had no kisses on the show.
I would have liked it with Luke, please. And
I'm so sorry. I wish we could do that. You know, in a story slam, we will have a whole other style where you.
Well, it felt like
the side of
it felt like in the moment with Steve, when Steve and Celeste break up, it felt like we were kind of going down that road, you know, with Steve and Leslie, but that never happened.
Yeah,
right.
But it never happened. Yeah, definitely that would have been more of my love interests would have been Ian. And I was going to say the Rose Bowl, you know, my mom, again, being a sorority girl, like she dragged me to the Rose Parade every year.
Oh my gosh.
I remember sleeping on the grass at like 6 a.m., trying to get a good spot, and I hated my mother for that.
And then it came back to your life later on. Yeah.
And Chuck, didn't you say she was there was something with Barbie involved you were going to ask about?
Oh, so Maxie. So Maxie was the fashion doll for
Right.
Hasbro. Yeah. So I went off to NYU. I had auditioned for a commercial. I didn't even know for some Hasbro thing, and they just kind of had us improvise something. I'm going to NYU, and they're like, "Oh, you have a callback," and I was like, "For what?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, 6 months ago you auditioned for Hasbro. It's for their new doll. Like, you're gonna be the doll." And I was like, "Okay, that's what you're auditioning for. Okay, so go back." I go back. It's just me. And I was like, that's the first. I was like, I think I got it. It was just me in a room with a camera. And she's like, do this, do that. And then so I booked a 5-year contract with Hasbro. I flew all over the world. I went to Australia, and then I flew all over the country, and I talked to young girls as Maxie, and I dressed up. I had the most amazing costume, and I had Dolly Parton's wig maker make me I had $10,000 wigs on my head. It was really quite an experience. Yeah.
That sounds like an episode of the podcast on its own. That we could,
I know, right? You can Google the commercials.
Do you have a doll?
Yeah,
I do have a
doll.
Yeah, I do have a couple of them. But if you Google Maxie doll commercials, they'll come up, and they're pretty funny because I'm literally the detail of my costuming was incredible, to down to the earrings and the jewelry, everything was to the T of the doll. And I had the really cool thing is Hasbro actually for a whole weekend I had training to go on interviews. So I had the whole PR team came in, and they worked with me, and they trained me I learned how to always navigate back to what I want to talk about, no matter where the interviewer was going with things, how to kind of circle back around. And so it was incredible training and incredible experience. Again, I've been really, really lucky it didn't look like me. I had a wig. I was like, I'm down. And I get to look like I'm a chameleon. That's my thing.
But it didn't click, right? There's the Maxie doll. My daughter, the one who didn't join the sorority when she went to Pittsburgh, her name is Maxine. So we call her Maxie,
Maxie. Yeah, no, she didn't. So I had a 5-year contract. It lasted 2 years. Maxie could just not compete with Barbie. So Barbie is like Kleenex. You say, give me a Kleenex. So I would hear girls go, "Oh, look there's the Barbie Maxie." So Barbie was the fashion doll. I mean, that's what Barbie was. It was a fashion doll, but that's what you just call it. Look at the Barbie Maxie. That's what they would say.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. Well, it's been great having you here, Brooke. You said you're very lucky, but you're also very talented, and you brought so much to the parts that you played. I grew up watching you and still adore you and think you're absolutely incredible. So thank you so much for spending your time with us and revisiting all of this.
That's all I have to say.
Oh, yeah. Shana Tava.
Flick clap.
All right. And for our 90210 podcast fans, we are working on getting Diane Young situated, and that should be the next stuff that we do. So working on that. All right, everybody, thank you.
Hi.
We will for sure.
I couldn't find her for our reunion. I looked for her. So please, will you hook her up with me?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, she's finally. We found her. We found her by just chance. Like her niece happened to be watching the podcast, and then Larry connected the dots. So
amazing. Lucky. She was
all right. Thank you so much. This has been a great week. Much appreciated.
Chuck, thank you.
Yes, it means a lot. I never got to meet the guest stars ever. I was always always so much fun to get to interact all these years later and know that we made the right casting choices. So
definitely.
Yes, right. Diane Young did a good job.
All right. We will see everybody